the work you've done typically 3 years ago is actually what's driving your results today. And if you lose sight of that and get too drawn into the short term, you're going to end up just going backwards.
In the last few years, I've become a fan of F1, in part because I think it's an incredible cauldron for testing leadership and leadership skills. It involves great teamwork, it involves high-end engineering, it involves intense use of massive amounts of data, and particularly speed, constantly adapting to changing circumstances. That's why I'm very excited about the conversation we're having today on leaders. A little different than the usual one. We've got James Vowles, who is team principal at the Atlassian Williams team.
That's correct. Well done.
You took over 3 years ago at kind of a low point. We'll talk about that.
Yep.
But thank you very much for taking the time to be with us.
Oh, you're welcome. And that's a fantastic intro, because actually you've summarized incredibly well why I fell in love with the sport. It is a high octane, continuously moving technology product that's just on a world stage.
And split-second decisions that have to be made by you and your colleagues.
Indeed. These days, less so by myself. That used to be my former job, but very much entrust it into individuals. Yeah. But you are spot on. Most, when you're live in an event, a number of decisions are taking place within a second or two.
Yeah. So I want to talk first about where you are right now. I watched a video you put out just a few days ago about your performance in the first half of this year. I thought it was amazingly candid. You were frustrated. You used that word a couple of times, and unhappy with the performance. And as I watched it, I thought you're basically writing off this year and saying we're going to start working on next year to give the performance that we need to give.
Yeah, I hope more subtly than that, but conceptually this is where you are. You can read between the lines. Fundamentally, it's this. We have a long-term journey. We set our external objectives. 28, it needs to be that people look at a Williams as a serious threat, but you're not going to be winning championships in 28. 2030 is our target for winning championships. We've externalized that. Everything else is effectively in service of those large milestones. This year was one of the years where we were trying to put ourselves a little bit on the front foot and work on the foundations we've been doing for the last few years. But frankly, it exposed a lot of weaknesses that I'm pleased they're exposed. We have to do that. Our job in all of this is make sure we understand really where we are and keep fixing it until such point as we're there. But it has meant this year is a lot more painful. It's not the performance level I would like it to be. We would like it to be.
Yeah, and I have to think that one of the hard things about this is, look, I talk to a lot of leaders who are undergoing transformations. Sure. In fact, transformation has kind of become the word of the day. I don't think I talk to any leaders who aren't doing this transformation. But it's got to be hard leading towards that 2030 goal when you've got a team that's feeling the pain every day. They want to win tomorrow. They don't want to win
Exactly.
in 2030. How as a leader, how do you manage that tension between the short-term reality and the long-term goal?
Yeah, it's a great question, because if I just take a little step sideways, here's another thing that I think is great in Formula One. Actually, our job in some regards is easier than most individuals running a company externally because of this. Every 2 weeks, you have a pulse check on where you are, and you know whether you've improved or not relative to 10 other competitors. And most companies don't have that. Maybe you have a P&L once a year. Maybe you have some competitive data, but frankly, a lot of the time you're floating. You don't know. We don't have that. It's a metronome. You know where you're going forward or backwards. Downside to it is I have 70 million people telling me on the Monday how good or bad a job we're doing. So slightly different to the world as well in that regard.
Fairly candid in doing that.
Oh, they are. I assure you they don't hold back, and nor should they. So therefore, to your point, again, if I go to the negative side of that, what is it? You're going to be drawn towards the short term because you have no choice to. It hurts going to a race weekend where you are not performing, which can invariably bring you to today. But here's the secret behind it. And this isn't Formula One. This isn't our organization in Williams. This is everyone. The work you've done typically 3 years ago is actually what's driving your results today. And if you lose sight of that and get too drawn into the short term, you're going to end up just going backwards.
But you realize that's true for like most major corporations.
Everyone. This is not Formula 1.
The performance today has to do with decisions made 3 years ago.
Correct. The people you in place, the process you have, the systems you have, what you decided to drive to as milestones. 3 years, roughly. It depends on this. This could be 2, could be 4, but ballpark, that's it. And so to your point, we have to, and we will continue to, drive us to these long-term goals and make sure we use the milestones to drive the business as the real metronome. And across the way, so you can make sure that we take elements that have learning that allow us to learn for the long term. And a lot of that is in failure. So I talk a lot about this, but I fail daily. I'd even consider that I was here today, half an hour earlier, failure in part, because it means I haven't fully played up.
The schedule didn't quite work.
Exactly that. But those are what make you as a human being. And some of the best things I've done in my life is frankly to fail and then to learn from it. It's the second bit that's really important.
I'm glad you raised that. I'm going to come back to it in a minute. But first let's roll back 3 years.
Yeah.
You were at Mercedes.
Correct.
Where winning was kind of a routine.
Yep.
And you were asked to take over Williams, where losing was kind of a routine. Why did you do it? What did you see there that said, this is what I want to do?
There were 3 connections I had. First, despite everything you've said, which is true, we're still the 3rd or 4th most successful team in Formula 1, even today.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
over history.
Over history. We've been around for 50 years. We have 9 world championships to our name, 7 drivers championships, so 16 championships top. Many teams don't have 1 or 2.
And is that DNA, or is that, I mean, the attraction to you there is, it's a great brand, but was the winning DNA there, or was it taking a brand and recreating the culture?
No, the attraction for me was that, so all of that is lovely. I'm proud of it. It's just emotional fuel. That's all it is.
Yeah.
I want to bring this team back into winning ways.
Yeah.
So what attracted me? It has a beautiful legacy, but that was 20 years ago. It has investment from Dalton, which is based here in New York. The investment is serious, and it's not investment for profit. It is investment for winning. That is it. They're 2 different things in regards. Actually, one, interestingly, when you win, you end up with profitable, but you
got to win first.
Exactly. The drive and the clarity is clear. We are here to win. Number 3 that enticed me and excited me is that we will take opportunities and risks as we need to. Focus on the long term. In fact, every time I just bring us back a little bit too much to the short term, I'm reminded, focus on the long term.
On the long term.
And there's very few, you'll recognize this, boards or investment groups in the world that will drive you that way. And it's inspirational, and it's a combination of those elements that meant I felt at home here.
And did you have a transformation, a detailed transformation plan on day 1, or did you take 100 days and then put it together? What was the theory of the case?
So I personally don't believe in the 100-day element of things, but it wasn't on day 1 either. It took something ballpark between 30 days, and actually I would even argue up to 1.5 years to start finding everything. Now that may sound like an exceptionally long period of time, but when you're talking about a company that had such an glorious past, but now isn't where it should be today, with 1,300 people, roughly 1,200 people.
That's what it takes to
Correct.
run these races
And here's what's beautiful about the business, because there's very few businesses in the world that have this. I have what I consider really full stack. So we will have ideation, we'll have creation of an idea that then gets tested in a tunnel. That will then be designed, that will then be produced, that will then be tested again. And then it will run on track in a competition, and we have a brand element that effectively is pushing our brand of our business. There's very few companies in the world, lots that do design, lots that do design and production, lots that do production, lots that have ideas and then maybe do design. Very few that do that full.
Top to bottom. And
it takes time as you start really accelerating the business and pushing ourselves to other limits, where you start finding it fails in ways you haven't predicted.
And so once you got into it and you saw it and you understood it, what was wrong? What was your theory?
Ballpark this. 0, it was driven by passion. No process, no system, no structure, no tools. Driven by human beings that wanted that car to be built and wanted to get out the door. great, except for you're now reliant on human beings going above and beyond to get anything done, which is simply just not possible in the modern world. It was a business that I can see how is successful. It had 2 leaders at the very top. Every decision went through those 2 leaders. So on day 2 of being in the building, I had a stack of papers this high, which was deciding everything. And that was the point at which you go, this is not going to work.
This is not the way you run this size of a company.
Nope. But you can see why it's got to where it's got to at this point, and you need to change it fast. And that leads into culture. You'll hear me talk about culture the whole time, but it is culture. Not running a company is not complicated. It's fundamentally people, culture, system, tools. You've got to get all of them right to be in a good place.
And so I know this is a complicated question, and we only have 20 minutes to discuss it, but how do you do that? What's your roadmap for creating a winning culture?
For me, it starts with the top level of leadership. Make sure you highlight if individuals in that area know what great looks like. Yeah. They can be good people, but if they don't know what great looks like, you either have to layer with that, so it's a knowledge deficit, or frankly replace in that circumstance.
Did you have to change a lot of talent?
Yeah, it's
50%?
Actually, that's not far off the number. So the company as I joined was 600 people. The company today is 1,200, 1,300. But as you would imagine, there was a number reduced as the result of it as well. So it's a large change in an organization shape and size and fit.
One of your big victories, obviously, was convincing Carlos Sainz to join the team. How'd you do it?
So his values and behaviors are nearly identical to me. Honesty, transparency, candid discussions, brutal honesty on where we are. And with him, what I did is from the first meeting I had with his family back in, it was 2023 actually, in December 2023, I explained, here's where we are, here's what we're doing, and this is what the next 3 years looks like. Now, what can happen is you can hoodwink someone if it's a period of 3 months. Yeah. This wasn't. This was a period of a year. And in a year, everything I promised them that we would deliver, we went on to go and do at that stage. And so in a period of time, they can see that you can be elsewhere, but I will make you into a leader where your voice is heard, and we will execute on a shared plan. You'll be a part of it. You'll tell me if you're not happy with part of that plan. Yeah. And it just means that instead of just your job being to get in the car and drive, which frankly is the easy part, actually your job here is to be a leader, and you can leave a little bit, as I'm doing as well, of yourself on this team, that when it's successful, you can be recognized.
And do you have those candid conversations with Carlos?
Yeah, and at times they're difficult. They're very difficult this year, but it is the only way to be.
When you put out this video a few days ago on your performance, when I watched it, those were the words that came to me, the candor and the brutal honesty that you showed in that video. Do other team principals do videos? That was a Twitter video. Did the others do that?
Short answer, no.
And why do you?
It's incredibly important. First of all, the accountability is on my shoulders, not on someone else's. No point hiding from it. I don't want to hide from it. Second of all, we are here. We're not a manufacturer. We're not an OEM. I don't sell cars. I don't sell fizzy drinks. We're here racing for the love of the sport and because of our fan base, which is incredibly important. And the individuals in the team, about 1,200, who give up. If I asked them to go and sleep in the factory for a week, they'd go and sleep in the factory for a week. They give up their life for me. And the least I can do for all of those in return is give candor and honesty as to where we are and what we're doing about it, so that they stay by my side as we keep progressing.
You clearly have a very clear and strong sense of leadership and what leadership means. Where did that come from? Where did you learn it? What? So,
a little bit from everywhere. I did have the pleasure of working for Toto for a number of years, and he had the brilliant vision to take a company that was originally £1, then sold for 100 million or so, into a company worth 7 billion. And he had the vision for how to do that. So from him, I learned very much on high-level strategic growth of organizations. Before him, Ross Brawn, who was at Ferrari and very good. His skill was he'll be able to get a number of individuals in the room and get them talking around a subject. I know that sounds basic, but it's actually hard to pick the right individuals and create the environment that's safe for them to talk. Before that, David Richards, who loved his charisma. He could get into a room, get everyone to point his way and walk out behind him. Wasn't necessarily the same values, but I learned a lot from him. And then separately, for a period of time, I ran my own, whilst I was still in the Formula One, software business that was reasonably successful. Yeah. And from that, I learned a number of skills that I was lacking otherwise. So everywhere.
And how would you describe your distinct leadership style?
It is pretty much what you see. Brutal honesty, candidness, no politics. Politics have no place to play with me. I don't want a single yes person around me. You tell me what really is going on. And in fact, I struggle with individuals that hide information. You will not lose your job for doing the best of your ability and highlighting where we have problems. You may, if you apportion blame somewhere else as a result of it, or hide information, because those are the characteristics that will destroy an organization quickly. Take risks, and I'll be by your side when you do it. Fail, and I'll be by your side when you do it. These are all qualities that the best leaders I've ever worked with have.
Yeah. You talk about fail and learn from it. What's the biggest mistake you've made in the last 3 years, and what did you learn from it?
Oh, that's a good question. There's so many. No, I don't know if there is so many, but actually one mistake I will talk about is I oversold this year, not intentionally. I thought we really had a good set of positioning, but it exposed a lot of weaknesses we didn't have. That's a mistake. That is a mistake.
You thought you had gotten to where you wanted to go sooner than you actually had.
I thought a lot of the fundamentals were in a strong enough position that we're going to be able to leverage that. And actually, a number of them, when we stress tested them, fell apart. Yeah. And that is not something that my goal in all of this is always, it's not to undersell. It's just to be honest with the outside world. On this one, it showed me I did not do enough diligence inside the building to make sure we are where we should be at that point.
I'm a relative newbie to the sport. You've been in it for 20 years, but what, at the end of the day, what's more important, the car or the driver?
If Carlos was here, no, I'm just No, actually, again, it's what I admire with Carlos and Alex. They're actually very realistic on it. So here's how I view it. It's a very simple, noddy way of doing it. Between the best to the worst card is probably 2 seconds. Last year was probably half a second, not a lot of time. Between the best to the worst driver, 0.6. So
wow.
It gives you a proportionality between the two.
The car's more important, but you're all talking about fractions of a second.
Exactly that. And here's the bit that doesn't take into account. In addition to that, the driver is the most powerful sensor you have in the car. So the cars, we're logging 55,000 channels of data live from either car. So there's a lot of data. The best sensor is the driver, because fundamentally they will tell you something that sometimes you can't even measure in the data. They will come to your factory and 40 of their words will be more powerful than me talking for 2 hours. They are leaders. So in performance terms, you would argue car's more important. I mean, Carlos and Alex are brilliant drivers. They're not going to win in our car this year. But they also have an attribute of a leader, which is very difficult to take into account, which is more potent, in my opinion, out of the car than almost driving it.
Fascinating. And you talk about a lot of data, massive amounts of data. That's obviously a ripe field for the new technologies that are being developed right now. How is AI changing your business?
I've said this before, I'll maintain it. I think there's other companies in the world well and truly ahead of where we are in Formula One in that regard. We as Williams, how's it changing? We've taken several years to get ourselves into a strong position with data, because if your data's all over the place, frankly, you're wasting your time with AI. It will tell you the wrong information. Where we are today is I think we're a lot more structured in how we're getting the data in, and we're using it across different bits. So for example, we have a simulation model that uses an AI driver. And before we go to the track, we'll do tens of thousands of simulations to understand how to get the most out of the car at that point in time. Not the same as a driver, they drive in a different way, but it's a useful learning experience. That's an AI driver. We model in the race strategically what we think all of the other teams will do. In fact, a really interesting one, it's not actually, this was stolen from market analysis. When you do volatility analysis of markets, you don't actually analyze what the markets will do or predict what the markets do. You predict what the traders will do. We do the same thing. We predict what the strategists will do, which then allows you to determine what strategy you should do in correspondence to that. And all of that is effectively running millions of simulations with AI models running underneath it. Early days on all of that. We're not using it to develop cars or otherwise at the moment. We are in the infantile stages, and we need to get faster at all of that.
So I personally am fascinated by team sports, and I think most business leaders are fascinated by team sports, because you have this conundrum of you want team members who are super competitive, who are out there to win. but you also need to have team members who can collaborate, who can work together, and who can know when the moment comes to step aside and let your team member go. That becomes concentrated in F1 because you got two drivers.
Correct.
How do you build that sense of team with Carlos and Alex?
I think there we're in a really good state. And proof of that is last year when Carlos was on the podium, Alex was the first person by my side. You won't see that in any other team where the driver is celebrating the team's results as a result of it. Remember, as a driver, you feel terrible. It's not you. It should have been me. But he wasn't. He put that all aside. So how have we achieved that? Williams is more important than me, far more important than me, more important than Carlos, and more important than Alex. But all three of us will align ourselves to make Williams successful as the ultimate goal. And what we've agreed is, while we're not fighting for wins, let's keep building and developing Williams. At the point we're fighting for wins, we'll create a construct that allows you to fight fairly. That does not mean equally. It's motorsport. Something will fail.
So they're
in the car.
competitive.
Correct. Oh, hyper competitive. Yeah. I think arguably we all are in different ways. I was reminded of a recent example. This will take up valuable time, but I'll do it very quickly.
That sounds good.
We do a Williams karting, which actually ceased. And the reason why it ceased is in year one, I won it. In year two, it was between Alex and myself in the final. And it's a team sport, so we bring along teammates. I had politely asked, there were two interns. I had them at the track for a whole week beforehand, basically practicing so that when we turned up on the day, we were there fighting for the win, effectively. Yeah. We're all hyper competitive, is what you need to be aware of. And it's on anything. It doesn't have to be Formula One car. We're just hyper competitive. And it doesn't, that mindset is a brilliant mindset, but you focus it on the bigger picture. And the bigger picture right now is we have 10 other teams that we need to beat first. Let's go do that.
Yeah. So what has to happen between now and 2030? We talked about the engineering. We talked about the team. We talked about the data, but and AI and new technology. But what needs to happen in order for you to win?
Long story short, it's a basic function. What you need to be doing is that every week that is going by, you need to be adding more car performance than anyone else. Our environment is a continuous improvement environment. So effectively, every minute of every day, everyone, and I really do mean everyone, needs to be making their area decimals of percent better, because that just builds up over time. So if you're static, you fall back, which is what happened to us, frankly. Number two, you need to be thinking of, whilst you're doing that continuous improvement, game-changing ways of going about your work that some may pay off, some may not pay off, but effectively invest in other areas that allow you to grow. AI could be one of those, for example, but different approaches and ways of working. My dream, it's a different question, but I'm going to put it back to you. My dream is that when we are winning, and we will be, it is a when, not an if, we looked at as an organization who has changed the sport on our journey. That is effectively the image that I want to make sure the business understands. And it reframes your mindset. Now what it means is, yeah, this 1% is important. Think of what completely puts you in a different dimension.
Continue the transformation.
Exactly
basically.
that.
Yeah. All right, speed round. I've got a bunch of questions here.
Go for it.
I want to go through them quickly. When you're not on the track, what kind of car do you drive?
Porsches, generally, a mixture.
What's more important to you, gut instinct or the data?
Oh, that's a hard one. Both. Generally data, though. That is more important.
You're data driven. What's your favorite F1 city?
I've fallen in love with Miami. That is such a good Grand Prix now and such a good city.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll take a break from my speed round here, but why?
First of all, if you take the Grand Prix, I think that is the crown jewel on the calendar. When you go there, I get goosebumps, and I've been doing this for 25 years. Yeah. It's just a massive experience. You go into the city centre, the whole city centre is celebrating Formula One. And what you're going to remember is 5 years ago, 10 years ago, no one even knew what Formula One was. We've been embraced by this country, and you feel special from it.
Yeah, very cool. What's your favorite sport outside of racing cars?
Don't really have much. I would say still racing cars. MotoGP is what I enjoy as well, but still racing, just different arena.
Very cool. And F1 is obviously high speed and very intense. What do you do to relax, to slow down, to take a beat?
This I don't know if this will make me look good or bad. I race myself in order to relax. I do three things. Race myself, different category, GT3 racing, fly helicopters, fly airplanes. Those three.
All sound pretty intense.
Yep. But I tell you why.
Do you meditate? You do yoga? Do you?
No, but here's the three. You're right, they're intense. When you drive racing cars, you go into a state of flow. When you fly helicopters, you go into a state of flow. When you fly airplanes, you go into a state of flow. Nothing else in the world matters.
It's all about the flow.
And that is, if you think about meditation, that's where you're taking yourself into a completely different dimension. So I switch off. Doesn't matter what's going on, I'm in the moment.
Yeah, fascinating. Lots of lessons there for business leaders. James, thanks for taking the time.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.